Historically, the doldrums was a term glumly ascribed by sailors to the intertropical convergence zone. Known as such because of its monotonous, windless weather, the doldrums is the area where the northeast and the southeast trade winds converge. It encircles the Earth in a serpentine embrace near the thermal equator, though its specific position varies seasonally. It is a mirage that stalks us, that might engulf us when we least expect it. I think of gargantuan, elaborately carved Baroque ships sailing through the 17th century, only to be brought to a halt as billowing sails turn flaccid. The vessel and all who inhabit her caught in a feverish, disease-ridden mire. A disciplined crew descend into a form of madness induced by starvation, solitude, and stasis. Sounds echo and reverberate. Sometimes my surrounds fall so still, so silent, I'm swept up by the raging sound of my own blood coursing through arterial passageways. A desolate loneliness accumulates on my skin, the crevices of my body. It forms a crusty shroud as days pass into nights insistently. I occupy a series of small rooms with very large windows that dominate west-facing walls. I keep the blinds open perpetually. Each window broadcasts the world outside back to me, even if at times it feels utterly impenetrable, like the cold, lacquered surface of a television screen. It reminds me that I do exist in a place, not just in the wall chamber of my mind. I often awake before dawn, sluggish, to watch the light feel its way around the contours of the earth. Some nights I've taken to sitting on the floor of my apartment with all the lights out, everything in the room imparted with a tangerine hue from street lights outside. My windows overlook a large hospital, and if I look close enough, I can see the winking green lights illuminate individual wards. I imagine I can see the people inside. Wonder if they drift off to sleep at the same time I do, awake in the same subdued dawn. They are completely unaware that I watch for them each day and that they occupy my thoughts. A year ago, my mother was in hospital, and the anxiety of being separated from her was too great to bear. I booked a small beige room in a hotel meters from the hospital walls, fell into a void-like sleep that night almost instantly knowing we were neighbours. Our rooms were odd facsimiles of one another, white sheets stiff with the repeated cleansing of bodily presence, the acrid scent of disinfectant masked by saccharine perfume wafting from adjacent bathrooms. Wide windows that looked out onto this low-lying city. Hers opened up onto rooftops giving way to a crescent bay. Mine faced the white lattice of a vast car park. I sat curled on a worn armchair, peering down through the twilight, Or it may have been the glistening darkness that comes just before dawn, when every point of light sharply slices the air. I watched people come and go, trucks loading goods. Little neon figures moved about a construction site like dolls in a miniature toy house. It was like watching a slow televised serial, completely unreal, with only minor variations and aberrations to mark the time. The Eddystone Lighthouse is considered to be the first offshore lighthouse. It was a precarious structure erected in 1698 upon rocks submerged by briny waters at the place where the English Channel meets the Celtic Sea. Its pale beam, transmitted by 60 large candles, was considered a miraculous apparition, guiding ships through the inky darkness of a most treacherous body of water. Though largely forgotten of now, the edifice was once associated with monstrous calamity. Architecturally elaborate and convoluted in structure, the lighthouse lacks stability. In 1703, an unprecedented, ferocious tempest swept across Europe. As shaken villagers awoke on the windswept Cornish coast, they looked out to the sea to find that this lonely structure that had gazed out over the horizon had vanished. The lighthouse and its inhabitants had been devoured by colossal waves. No trace was left behind. Each day constitutes of endless waiting, watching as sunlight slips through Venetian blinds, casting an inscrutable code of light across my floor. Trains slip past with their shuddering sighs, the mournful cry of their horns tolling like colossal church bells. Velvety lavender shadows glide out of hiding. The world trembles and glitters at the precipice of evening. My eyes strain across the courtyard. The winking neon tremors of automated street lamps herald that night has now fallen. I begin a daily correspondence with the hospital residents in my imagination. Alone as I am, it begins to seem real. I know the gesture of correspondence is clumsy, but something I cannot name compels me. I remember tales of lighthouse keepers losing their sanity as their hermetic existence is prolonged. Perhaps it is a divination of some kind. Somehow an exchange only feels possible at night. Darkness collapses space. An absence of light renders things anew. The emerald glow of the hospital facade devours my line of sight. At the advent of night, events are governed by an alternate nocturnal logic. Its reign is savage, mysterious, and beautiful. The world slows to a somber drifting pace as hours pass, yet the lights of the hospital pervade in their astonishing brightness. I think about them each day, wonder if their brow flickers and contorts as a needle makes its home inside a vein, bringing with it a pandemonium of pearlescent tubes. I think about trays of perfectly piped florets of starchy mashed potato that congeal grey, never eaten on the wards. I think of the clock face of machines that measure the interior cadence of the body, their dials and interstices never revealing their arcane workings. I want to stretch out my arm, the pads of my fingers splayed, to put my hands on their shoulders, to murmur in their ears, to let them know that though I cannot look upon them, I'm always watching. I hold them always in my thoughts. I think of nurses rendered anonymous in their identical neat blue scrubs, coming and going in eternal atemporal revolutions. Hospitals are places that devour time, spitting out a viscous, constant moment in which birth, death, malaise, and rehabilitation pull together until they become indistinguishable. The day that we found out you were sick, we took you to the beach. I remember your head bobbing inches from mine, hair plastered to your temples slick and glistening. The morning we lost you, we walked along the beach once more. The sun had not yet risen. Mounds of sand, a dull, forlorn blue, cushioned my knees as my body was racked with wild laughter. Throughout the ages before the globe was safely encased in the ghostly scaffolding of longitude, sailors became lost at sea when the last glimpses of land slipped past the horizon. Before the imagining of complex and highly accurate clocks that could carry us afloat across space and time, tethered to the secret workings of the heavens, those that braved the tumult of the oceans were left utterly adrift.